right over to our Director of Finance, David Sanders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. We're going to start off with Director of Finance Department, which is on page 79.
Mr. St. Hilaire, would you like us, if we have questions, to ask while we're going through it, or do you want us to save it till the end?
No, please ask as we go through.
Okay, thank you.
And that way you don't have to try to remember them, take notes, and I'll address them as we go. And most of these departments in general government, too, are pretty straightforward, and then it gets into the insurances, and my assistant, the finance director, will be here shortly. And in the Director of Finance Department, there are a few changes. You notice my overtime salary count has dropped significantly because I had some non-exempt staff that were changed into exempt, and that saved about $10,000 from making me exempt. And I'm looking for my pen, by the way. Guys, is there a pen? Thank you. Otherwise, it's pretty flat, with the exception of salaries.
Union people?
No, they were non-union. They were eligible for overtime before, and now they're no longer eligible for overtime. They were key personnel that I, quite frankly, very dedicated people, and they were found that they were working at home and doing things that basically exempt people do. They were clearly exempt status, and for some reason they've been classified as non-exempt, and we evaluated their position and we classified them properly. So, okay. And as such, and across the board, overtime has been kept to a minimum, and so the 4,000 that you see there is the bare minimum that we need for overtime. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. The next one is audit. Independent audit. We notice independent audit is going up slightly, and we are going out for an RFP. Our 3-year is up this year. I'm still page 79. And I'm not exactly sure how much that will increase, but I suspect it will increase some. And the reason being is because of the GASB requirements. Unlike a lot of other things, which we've seen, costs come down, that's one thing that, although costs may drop in other areas, but because of the additional requirements for GASB, these costs will probably go up. Retirement administration, I dropped a little bit. These are costs that we incur when we ask for a different actuarial analysis from our consultant. And this year it's going to be a little bit higher, and it's going to drift into next year as we ask for additional calculations on these retirements and other items related to that. The city treasurer is on the next page, 81. It's again pretty straightforward. The increases that you see here, there's going to be a
year and 1.5. The next year, wasn't it split between the years?
No.
Or was it split in the 1 year?
This,
in the 1 year?
what was done last year, and if I give you a little history on it, and last year, at this meeting that we had last year for General Government 2, a proposal was made by Councilman Cabo.
Well, that was government 1. This is government 2.
I'm sorry, that is Government 2.
No, this is government 1.
Confuse everybody now.
This is government
Government
1.
1, and I think that was because of registrars. But the motion was made to give the registrars an increase of 3.5%. And in addition to that motion, was to also give the other elected officials the same 3.5%. The difference was it started at, instead of December 1st, it started at January. Instead of starting at January 1st, it started at December 1st. That was the difference.
Okay. I do have last
Per those
year's-
minutes.
I do have last year's government 2 minutes here, and it actually doesn't address it at all, the motion.
Yeah. So, you know, I think, I really still think it's to your discretion. If you want to make it 1.5 and 1.5, that's to your discretion. But you've got the money to cover it here, all right? And I would recommend, you know, just because it's in there, it doesn't mean you have to spend it. And I tell my departments all the time. So, we move on?
Yes, please. I think anybody help me?
All right. Data processing. $83. All right. Data processing. We scaled back a little bit. We're looking at all sorts of things. We're slowing down some of our replacement computers, and we're looking at some of our software that we're doing, eliminating some of the duplication wherever possible. There is we hope to find some opportunity in some of the software that's being offered out there right now. But I think that in the past there just seems to be a constant automatic renewal on this. And I'm really pressing these departments, especially if it's not necessarily DP's stuff. It could be the police department, but it's being funded through DP's department, to say, all right, guess what? You're going to be paying for this, and I may be coming back to the council to say, I want to reallocate this to the police department, to some other department, and make them a little bit more responsible for this stuff. Because I think that's a very effective way of making them, really in tune with how this, when they order stuff, how it really impacts their department and the city in general. They may make some hard choices then. It's worked extremely well, and I know you've heard me say this before with special services. The police and the fire, to their credit, are all over that. The aging schedule on that has shortened quite a bit. At this time last year, there was literally hundreds of thousands of dollars outstanding for receivables that we had to chase down. And when in last year's budget, we recommended that we don't carry a revenue and an expense for special services. We recommended that we just carry it on the expense side, and we let the department, the fire and the police department, absorb it. And if they don't collect it, they're going to actually see their expenses rise. And if they collect it and they're aggressive in collecting it, it's going to actually work in their favor, because they're charging more than what the actual cost is. And that's can be used to maybe fund some training stuff. So they've been very good about doing it. Now, with some of these other expenditures, well, we want them to understand and I mentioned this in the public works area. If you bang up your car, if you're running over curbs, if you're doing some of these other things, somehow you need to see the report. You need to know that you're going to be the one coming back to council begging for money. Not Antonio all the time, because it sounds like a broken record. Well, Antonio, of course, he's public works, he's going to need it. But really, if it's the police, maybe he needs to send these guys to driver safety or something, or some other issue. Same way with DP. If there's something else going on there that the department needs to be aware of. So we're going to look at ways to keep these departments much more informed and in tune with their total cost and their impact. And if they respond well, then fine. If not, I'm going to be coming back and saying, I want to reallocate this budget back to that department directly. And they're going to be eating the cost. And, and they're going to be responsible for it. So it's going to come out of Wade's budget to them. And we'll still purchase stuff and consult with them and advise them. But when they start ordering more stuff, they're going to be the ones whining about their over budget, and they're going to have to sacrifice something else in their budget to pay for it. Wade's not going to have to sacrifice. They're going to have to sacrifice something. Okay. The bottom line is this. Wade's sacrificing on his side our training. Some of these other items are replacement of some of the computers. We're just not going to replace them. Our replacement program is being stretched out. It's kind of the same way on the police side. It's being stretched out. We can't keep the schedule off like we wanted to. It's tough times. Okay. Any questions on that? Board of Assessment, or Bureau of Assessments, that's pretty flat. Nothing exciting there. Any questions on that? Board of Assessment Review, the only change there is those salaries, regular salaries, are no longer under regular salaries, they're now part-time salaries. So you'll see, change in the head count. We changed that historically as well. They're part-timers. They should never have really been in the head count. Okay. Tax collector. They're losing a person. Okay. They've been a short one person this year, and so we took that person out of the budget. Okay, and that accounts for a lot of that savings right there. I think there was some question at one time about the outside services account dropping, and that's going to be dealt with in a more of an accounting way. We used a collection agency before, and that was being billed through, much of that was being billed through our outside services account. Actually, it was being handled in a couple of different ways. One of it was being billed through outside services, and there's some other stuff, other things in outside services, but a good chunk of it was being through there. Through our new collection agency, it's a lower cost, by the way, and it will be. It's more of a. It's coming out of. It's a tag-on fee. So if the outstanding taxes is $100, the addition and the collection fee is 15%, then the taxpayer is going to have to pay $150. So it's not an expense to us, it's an expense to the taxpayer.
Councilman Perkins had a question.
I'm sorry.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
through you to Mr. Singer. Can you go back to page 83 real quick, please?
Yes.
I just had a question on, hopefully you can help me identify what professional services and communication services are, what department, what parts of the city benefit from those two types of services?
Sure. Okay, professional services. If you look at page 10 in the narrative, that's Oracle, and HTE, which is one of our primary systems, and also in there, which isn't listed there, is J.D. Edwards, which is Microsoft, one of our financial and payroll systems. There's infrastructure support, GIS project stuff. Those kind of things make up the professional services account. A number of items hit into there for those kind of systems.
Thank you. Follow up. There's no way to tell, as far as communication services, what portion
Communication services.
for web hosting as opposed to the actual cost of that T3 line. You can't break that out, can you?
Oh, sure. We got a breakout of it. I can get back to you on that.
Councilman Curran has a question.
To the chair, to say hello. The back taxes collected, where do we show up in the budget? And do we get a report annually on how much is collected?
Yeah, it's collected under it's all in the tax revenue line. You would see that under prior year collections if you looked in the details of the report, but do you get a separate detailed report? No. We're working on putting one of those together, something that it's more of an internal report, analytical tool for myself that I will hopefully be able to make it more user-friendly and summarize. To provide some historical report that would be useful for you guys. But right now, it's HC is not really a good report provider. Scott can provide all that detail, but again, it's a.
So do you know every year how much to the penny you get in on?
Yeah. Yep. I tend to like it in Excel, because I look at it. I can get a hard copy report, but I look at things differently. I like to bring it into Excel so I can look at trending and look at percentage changes from month to month to see, trending, to see if there's any. If I'm going to have a problem, when am I going to have that problem, and I want to know, able to anticipate the problem. If I wait till, the end of the year, it's too late. The reports that we have right now just they're somewhat useful, but it's almost it's too late for me. Any other questions? Okay. Purchasing. Okay. Well,
That's on
purchasing.
page 93.
Page 93. Thank you. Purchasing the sliced chick to the bone. And he's here to show it. We cut out his overtime, his part-time, and left him with very little else. And he took he took 115 here. Took out $10,000 out of an already small budget. So, and he does a lot of POs, and all that. It'd be interesting for him to tell you how many POs he put together for that police station. A lot of that went right through Chick's office. He's one of those unsung heroes.
I didn't hear his name mentioned today.
Oh, it was, but it was mentioned quite a bit, believe me. And Antonio and Fareed and everybody else, and the mayor appreciates all the work that Chick does there. Couldn't have done it without.
Thank you, Chick.
Okay. Personnel.
110.
110. Okay, personnel. We reduced personnel slightly. Slightly about $40,000 in professional services and in part-time and I didn't mention overtime in training. You're not seeing anything in the amended budget for training, but in the original budget, I think they had $15,000 in there. Last year's actual was about $10,000. And in some public notices, quite frankly, we're hiring. The hiring is slowing down. We're only hiring in essential areas for training. That's the bottom line. Police, fire, and public works where necessary, and any other key positions. They still need to do their all the activities of the department. It's still vital. They still need to negotiate with the unions, although we don't have any union contracts coming up this year. It doesn't mean that negotiations won't begin towards the end of the year, for the end of the next contract. It's an ongoing thing. It just means the intensity won't be as strong.
Councilman Curran has a question.
Just Chair, David, does the negotiation, the legal fees come out of personnel for negotiations, or they come out of the corporate account?
Well, they come out of, a lot of that comes out of the next one, which is called labor negotiations. If you look at 111, in part, it depends on what the issue is. If it's just general stuff, it could come out of personnel department. If it actually deals with specific union issues, labor issues, is going to come out of labor negotiations. All right. There are fine lines there. All right. So that's.
In a follow-up, is there any in-house work that's done?
Absolutely. Diane has done a tremendous job. She actually, quite frankly, I don't know if anybody has dealt with Saran or is aware of who Saran is. Saran is an incredibly talented attorney that we have from Shipman, and we've been working with her for years. And she has a long history, and we're very fortunate to have her. But it's very expensive. And we need her for that history, but Diane is the grunt. I mean, she does a lot of the upfront work, and we don't need to be paying Shipman or Saran to do some of the work that Diane can do at a much lower cost. So that's what Diane does. You know, she'll attend a lot of the meetings that in the past Saran would have attended, or somebody from Saran's office, from Shipman's office, would have attended. So we would have been paying their time and travel and everything else. You know, saving us a lot of money. And you're starting to see those costs come down, in part because of, we're not negotiating heavy contracts, but also in part because of the cost savings that we realized from bringing Diane on, and the incredible work that she's done.
Any other questions?
Diane goes far.
Councilwoman Day?
I have a question through the chair on page, let's see what page is it, 109. And maybe you've already answered this through Mr. Kern's question, where it says legal and public notices for the personnel department proposed by the mayor is 11,000, but last year it was 18,000. Is some of that moved over to the labor negotiations on 111? I don't know if that was your question.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that clean? No.
Yes, that's the question. Well, I guess my question is why is it being
Cut so much?
Yeah, cut so much, and what exactly is it?
Well, it's to advertise for positions, and we're just not advertising for too many positions. If we're advertising for positions now, it's involved. We may be advertising for a certain number of police positions or fire positions, not necessarily for individual positions because we're not filling them, quite frankly. It's a function of that.
Okay.
Okay. FICA is on, oops, we're going to skip way ahead now. 200. By the way, Dan Jowdy, your treasurer is here. Do you have any questions that I didn't cover? Or?
That's so good. Thank you, Dave.
All these are really functions of the payroll, and payroll related. They're mostly, calculation, formula driven. The pension expense has been provided to us by our Hooker and Holcomb. Excuse me, bless you. Our actuary. Employee service benefits, even it's some longevity sick leave, some old sick plans, and other things like that. Workers' comp, state unemployment, I bumped up just in case, but basically it's not that far off from what we did in our actual of 6/30/08. And our insurances, Dan is here if you want to talk about insurances. We scaled down, insurances have gone up. The amount, certainly the amount has gone up, as you can obviously see, but we also backed out 14 positions out of that too. Okay, and we've negotiated lower rates. We're still in the process of negotiating lower rates. We're taking several measures to get people on the HSA plan, which we have several people that are very interested in switching their plan into an HSA, which will save the city a significant amount of money per plan. We fully funded the first year. It may sound like a lot, but the savings to the city is significant, even fully funding it. We are buying out people if their spouse is on another plan. We're offering to buy out the plan to go on their spouse's plan. We're going to try to coordinate with the school as well to see if we can offer something like that. That's going to require us to cross-reference our employee lists, and to see where there are opportunities, either on our side or their side. know, because you got, ironically, you've got people that are and this is I still don't know why they do this, but you got people that want to have two spouses. They have family coverages, and I can't explain it. You know, yeah, 2 plans. Well, all right, then we need to just figure out a way to fund their deductible or do something so they're not causing us an extra $25,000 in the coverage. It's a cheap alternative. It's
Councilman
crazy.
Seaver.
Sure, Dave, how are you going to find that out?
Well, we're researching. Dan's doing a lot of research. He's talking to our consultant to find the right way of doing it. Because, you know, you just can't simply say, yeah, here's your deductible and be done with it. No, there's a right way to do this.
Well, maybe I obviously didn't ask correctly. How will you find those couples, the husband and wife, that have coverages on their own? Are you going to send out a letter to?
Well, we know who we've identified some people, but you can't force them because of the certain contractual issues. You can offer certain things, and you have to make sure you do it the right way. And the other thing is, we want to collectively try to do it with school. We have to see if we can find a way to make that cost effective. And it will, you know, obviously it will, because one way or the other,
I understand that.
one plan that's not going to have to be paid for. You know, it's just another way, if we look at us as a team here, to lower the overall costs. That's the bottom line.
Councilwoman Stanley.
Thank you through the chair. That's a great idea, but you have to take into consideration too, if a spouse gets laid off or
Right.
let go, then they have to have the opportunity to get their
It's a change in life.
employee benefits back.
Right.
Right? That would be, they'd be able to do that, right?
Right. That's a change in life situation, and the plans allow for those kind of situations.
Without losing any.
Just go back.
Councilman Curran and then Councilman.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I know, I can think of just in the fire department alone, it's 2 husband and wife teams. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's, we spend an extra $50,000. We don't have to spend $50,000. And then I can't imagine how many husband and wife teachers are in the city. I mean, that's something that should really be looked at.
It's being
That's
looked at.
tremendous savings.
It's being looked at, and you know it's being looked at on our side, the school side, and collectively, and we just need to figure out the right way to do it. You know, you can't just because you got contracts you got to do it.
It has to be done in other cities.
Oh, absolutely.
Somebody's got to be on it.
Absolutely. Most cities, a lot of cities, don't want to be bothered with the whole contractual union issues. Until now, you know, during financial difficulties, people are pressed into situations that they didn't previously want to deal with. Now they're dealing with it, and they're being more creative about it. So that's why they're offering, buying out, you know, they're working through their union issues where before they just would rather take a detour. Okay.
Councilman Levy.
Through the chair to the, on the workman's compensation, how do we have an ongoing audit of classifications on that?
Yep. Dan, I'm going to defer that to you because he's the expert, and I can give you a short
I
answer.
mean, a lot of times they fall behind and lose a lot of money.
Well, we have an annual audit. They come in and go through every payment. You know, they audit the entire payroll every year.
But I mean,
They classify each type of employee.
that's, I was looking for the classification,
Right.
whether you're construction or
Right.
you're doing clerical work.
Yeah. They have a code for each type of payment. It's NIC code.
Mhm.
They go by that. And if you're a police officer, we pay a certain percentage for them versus clerical. You know, each type of job is classified that way in our system.
Short answer, yes.
That's what I was looking to make sure, because that's what sometimes you find. The other thing is,
We're auditing everything.
we have insurance people that certainly know that when you have 2 insurers, when it gets to filing a claim, it becomes sometimes very difficult for the claimant
What's your primary?
as to who is going to be the primary cover. And you could wind up in big trouble, and that ought to be some encouragement to get a single coverage.
Councilman Seaver.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up question, Dave, just something that Phil said, he's got a couple of people in the fire department. In the school system here, there's only one policy. And the person that's actually carrying the policy is whichever birthday happens first in the year. And it comes out of that person's paycheck. And my wife was born in January, I was in December, so she picked it. I think that's great. But it's only one. We don't have two, Chief.
Okay.
But, you know, as I said, you know, we have certain historical union contracts that we need to work through and address. I think we have one issue that I think we've already, you know, historically was an issue, but I think we've worked through it. And there's a couple other things that, or a couple other couples that we're trying to deal with.
Councilwoman Stanley.
Just a follow-up also with that. Are you talking with double dipping in like the city side, or are you also taking into consideration private, you know, when somebody works for the city and then say their spouse has private insurance, works for another company outside of? Are you going to talk to those people too to possibly get rid of?
We open it up to everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. And I don't want to say double dipping because that
No,
implies that there's something
No.
they're doing something wrong. They're not. They're entitled
Right.
to it. But
Right.
what we want to do is, you know, there's a reason why they're doing it. It might simply because they're not well informed. And we want to inform them that there's another alternative.
And Madam Chairwoman, sometimes they do it as overlaps in policies. The school district policy is slightly different than the municipal policy. So they may get some coverage on one that they don't get on the other. So the problem becomes then is that people take both. And one of the things that Dave's talking about is cross-referencing the school list with the municipal list, and maybe approaching folks saying, hey, you know, it's just something we can maybe potentially work out to try to incentivize people off of one of those two. Business is a little trickier because people, one of the reasons they go into municipal service is because they want to have that stability of their benefit. So, you know, for them to go on their husbands or their husbands to go, you know, their wives, sometimes there's a bigger leap for them. But definitely there's some opportunities for the school and municipal side.
Councilman Trujillo.
I think it's a lot of, exactly what you're saying, it's a lot of psychological reasons that people do this because, you know, everyone is so afraid of not having health insurance or not having enough health insurance. So it's first going to have to be an education of what we can and can't do. Just what Colleen said about business versus the municipal. I know that this happens often because people think, well, suppose we get separated, suppose there's a divorce. My insurability, suppose I develop cancer and then we separate. Can I get back on a plan? And those are the questions that's why you're going to have. You're going to run into people saying, hey, that's part of my contract, that's my benefit, I'm going to take the benefit. And that happens, I mean, we see it all the time. And they're afraid of separation, afraid of not having the actual coverage.
Madam Chairwoman, if I could just interject, one of the challenges we're having is also teaching employees about the difference between the a la carte menu that we offer of insurance. And there is no difference really between the Century Preferred Plan and the Blue Care Plan. But we've had a little bear of a time. One of the Blue Care is a lot less expensive for us. Of explaining to people and just getting them to voluntarily migrate over. We have essentially eliminated that plan now, the Century Preferred. But it still is, you know, just the littlest things, you know, well, I won't get my doctor. Well, you will. Sit down and listen, and we'll explain to you. You're still going to get the coverage that you need. You're still, and by the way, you're going to have more money in your paycheck because the premium's less. So when we take 12% out of $22,000 instead of $25,000, you have more money to spend it at the end of the month. So it's been a struggle. We've had 3 seminars so far at HSAs. We're going to continue.
But then there are things you still have to keep because you're under retirees.
With that, yeah, that liability is never out.
And thank God for that insurance. That's all I have to say.
But and the mayor's name. clear about as far as any future hires. How they're going to be done.
Do we have any more questions on this part?
Okay.
Are we on union
I
welfare?
think we're in union. Page 7, that's. Any questions on union welfare? The Teamsters, union welfare benefits, or union benefits for the Teamsters. Any questions on that? Interest on debt, interest on school, interest on debt from school, redemptions on debt from school. That's on 202, I'm sorry, 203. Any questions on the debt section? And that's a function of debt that we've issued, and that's coming due. Related to our capital project. Page 209, contingency. This is an item I think we're all familiar with. So that every year, this is an amount that is we put in there just as an item, just in case. And it's typically used for bad winters, salt and sand, and things like that. It could be other items that the council deems necessary at the mayor's request. Whatever that might be, litigation and those kind of things. Okay. It's about the same as last year. Last year was 500,000. This year it's 450. The capital from 243 to 270.
There's a tab for that right after the water fund. Councilwoman Stanley has a question up from
Through the chair to Mr. Sandler.
Yes.
For the expense code 93005852 for the appropriations to the department's contingency, 450,000.
Yes.
If you go over to the Board of Education side,
What page are you on?
okay, on page 209,
Okay, and the other page?
and then 221.
Oh, okay.
The code 60015852. That's 208,000 for the school's health and welfare.
Yeah,
Does that come out of this 450?
No, that's not really a contingency. That's actually a program. That's Melanie's program over there.
School-based health.
School-based health program.
That's a separate.
Yeah, it's a separate thing. It's not a. And actually, you know what? That's a lousy description.
Not the nurses for the private schools.
Yeah, it's not all of Melanie's wage there, but I think take a look at that description again.
It's the 5852
I wasn't sure. That was right description?
It kind of defaults because it's a 5852, which is always ends up with a CONTING contingency. It's in the it's in the narrative. It's in the
Okay, I'll look in the narrative.
It's an account code description is what it is. The default set. You notice it's always the same account code description for that. I'll Oh, that's right, the school. Okay. It's related to the nurses. We're not going to have much more description than that, but I can get you more description.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna need it for tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Capital, page 243. Okay. What you see in your capital program, there's a function of the authorizations of the previous years, and both the school's debt and the city side debt. And you see first you see the bands. I'm going to take you to the schedules, 250 if you want to go there. If you want to look at the combined debt, 249, that gives you the combined debt. And 250, that gives you the short-term debt, which are the bands. Coming due in this August. We'll be re-upping most of those. Okay. And on 251, that gives you the ratio of total debt service to total expenditures. And you'll see the graph on 252. Still well within the city limit. Very good in comparison to other communities. Same with our debt per capita. Doing very well. $254 gives you a summary of the capital projects, 3-year history. All right, notes, grants, and LoSiP. See, there's no note or no grant. No notes being issued this year. As the mayor said, we're not issuing any debt to fund any capital projects, any new debt to fund any capital projects this year. If you turn to page 256, you will see that there are capital funding, there's capital funding, but that's coming from your operations. And I want to draw your attention to page 256 because it's a little different than what you're accustomed to seeing. And the reason for this, and I mentioned this in the previous meeting, but I'm probably some of you weren't there. The GFOA, during our last budget review, had asked us to make a stronger connection between our capital budget, our capital improvement plan, and our operational budget. And to do that, we included those items, many of those items that we funded through our operational budget, also in our capital improvement plan. In the past, we just kind of used our capital improvement plan as just something that we either got for grants or debt issues, and really it's meant for anything above $25,000. Any improvements that we do for $25,000 that's lasting. not purchases above, but any permanent improvements to $25,000. That's what a capital improvement is. And so if you look through, on the D's in the center of the page, where you see 2009, 2010 mayor recommended, you see some items with D's next to it. Those are items that when you look through the legend on the bottom, department operating budget. You go to that operating budget, and you'll see, for example, under fire, replace communication equipment and replace fire department equipment. Those are items that are of significant nature, being purchased through your operating budget within the fire department. In the police department, the police are purchasing some vehicles, $226,000 worth. Right? In part, that is actual vehicles, and then some equipment or outfitting, the cost to outfit those vehicles. Now, there's still some improvement as I went back and looked at this. There's still some things that we need to add into this, and that's probably some of the lease stuff that we do. We have to add some of the historical stuff that's lingering that maybe on this last year or two that's not included in this to really make this a complete capital improvement program. But we started to really improve upon this. So it's going to take a little bit of time yet. But we've made the link to our current year budget, and we hope to link to our tie it together and include the leases. And I'll give you an example of that. We know in the fire department, we look at our pumpers. The chief and I were just going through this yesterday. The chief has requested some pumpers. Where's the fire department? Page
259.
You know that he's got, if you look in the fire department budget, he's got a couple pumpers coming off a lease in a couple of years, right? And he's got some in 2012, 13, 2013, 14. He's asking to purchase some pumpers, each year for the next, for like 3 years in a row. Well, because the chief is planning to replace those pumpers as they come off lease, and they're a very long term. Do you recall how long that lease was?
Is it 10 years?
10 year lease. Okay. And they're good for about 7 to 10 years. Is that all right? Am I getting it screwed up?
You're maxing out at 10.
Okay.
Used to be 20, but now they've down to 10.
So chances are that will probably be leased again. And so what will end up, it really comes down to presentation on this. We'll show that every year, instead of showing 450,000, big chunk in 1 year, you'll show 45, 45, 45, but as a lease, not necessarily a debt issue. It's presentation. It's right now, it's a kind of a shock. Everybody's shocked. Oh my God, how are we going to come up with that in 1 year? Well, the reality is, you're not. You're already funding it through your operations. When the two leases that you have in your budget right now come due, well, you're just going to naturally continue that right here. So some of these items in here, it may seem like, oh, we're going to have to issue a debt, we're going to have to do this. Some of that may not be like that.
You just continue.
You continue. Or you make that decision at that time, but they're already in your operational budget in one way or another. Some of it. So that's why, we're trying to tighten that link, and that's exactly what you have to always talk about. I'm sorry to keep putting that back to you. It's okay. So presentation-wise, I think it would make for a more useful document. That's all. That's about it. Okay. So we're working to tighten it up.
Councilman Rivera?
Through the chair to the floor, ideally somebody from Public Works, but I'll give it to you, David. You've got 100,000 Pennsylvania for Worcester Heights and 200 for Southern Boulevard. What are those projects?
They probably...
We're not talking about signalization on Worcester Heights, are we? That's been going on for 20 years and coming down.
Councilman, what page are you
What's
on?
that?
Doesn't look like it's going to be under it, so.
Well,
What page are you on?
256.
256.
257.
257, yeah. It's Mountainville, Southern Boulevard, 200,000. Worcester Heights, 100,000.
B. On some notes.
25, there's only 6 or something.
Is that the year 2013, 2014?
Well, you know,
It sounds like that's probably on some 5-year cycle, if they're projecting out that far ahead, my guess.
I'll talk to you.
Yeah. I mean, if they're projecting out 13 and 14 in a chunk like that, it must be on some road replacement.
Maybe it's
5-year
COB
cycle.
paving, something you think it might be?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But that's a guess. I
Okay.
don't know. You'd have to talk to them.
Do we have any other questions from the floor? Do we have anything that any of the other department heads would like to add also? Councilman Nagasha?
Well, then at this time, I'd like to make a motion to accept the general government 2 budget presented by the mayor with, just to break up, as we discussed earlier, break up the 3.5% increase for the salary of the treasurer, as discussed. And also, in the motion for the 2010-2011 budget, to propose a 3.5% as well, broken up. Increase.
We need a second first. Okay, do we need an adjustment on the motion?
If I may. Would it be just for the treasurer, or would it be for also the city clerk?
Well, those are not part of government 2.
Oh, all right. We did it all in one measure. Okay. All right. I got it.
Right, so I don't want to speak. I only want to speak on government 2's 2009, 2010.
That's fine, right there.
Let's take care of it tonight.
I've been in too many meetings. We got
All
to help
right.
me keep it straight.
Any discussion on the motion from the committee?
And is it, I'm sorry, just so I keep it straight, is it 1.75 to 1.75, and then for the following year, you're
Yeah.
recommending the same, or
Yeah,
at
2010.
1.5 and 1.5?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, 3. It would be 3%.
Okay.
Right. So
Okay.
1.5, 1.5. Right.
Okay.
And this one, I thought it, for whatever reason, I thought it was 3, but obviously.
Well, I
we
think
have
we all
the minutes.
did, but it was in the note.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I did a double check.
Yep.
It was already in the minutes from last year.
Yep. Absolutely.
Did you get that?
I'm not sure. It sounds like 1.75 or 2 times now, and then 1.5 and 1.5 for the next one.
Correct. For 2010, 2011.
We just read it.
I think it.
It's 1.75 for December of,
Yeah, you're just modifying last year's number, or
Right,
the payment
of
of it,
December-
because it's already determined. the amount.
December of 2009 and May of 2010, correct?
Yes.
And then it goes to 1.5 December 2010 to May 2011.
They make a recommendation, list what was recommended last year, these increases. December to be paid out incrementally, like the union, December 1st and May 1st.
Would you like
Because the amount is
just-
determined last year. You're not making a recommendation here now.
Sit-ups.
And then the second one would be your next year. One and a half.
Right. She's got, I think I went through it.
July 1st and then January 1st.
Oh, then it changes to July
July
and
1st, and
January
then it gets back on a regular schedule.
for 2010.
Right.
July 2010.
July 2000.
And January 2011.
1st, 2011.
Okay, I just want to make sure we have the dates right. Any more discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.